Ben Jacobson here with a Ben Jacobson photo camera review. Today we have the Olympus OMD EM5, which is Olympus's newest Micro Four Thirds offering. On the table with it is the Fuji X100, the Sony NEX5 with a 16mm 2.8 pancake. The Olympus has the Panasonic 20mm 1.7 on it. Just now I have some other lenses I'll show you in a bit, but it's to give them as similar focal length as possible between all the cameras on the table. Here's the original OM1 film camera, 35mm full frame film, obviously. Just for size comparison for heritage sake. And in the back row is the Canon 70 with my 24mm 1.4, which is obviously not a camera you would consider for the same reasons. It's just here for size comparison and image quality tests in the written review. So these EVOLs, electronic viewfinder interchangeable lens cameras, or CSCs, have appealed to me because I've been working on a photo a day project of my family for the last 4 years straight. So every day I take a picture of something. Usually it's of my kids, just to kind of track their progress growing up as kids, which has been great for us. And it means I always have a camera with me. And originally I started it with a 5D 4 years ago. And that's a big camera, and it's a lot to carry around with you all the time, but it had the image quality I need, because a lot of the times I'm shooting around the house late at night, 1600 ISOs, 1.4 apertures, it's low light stuff. So back then that was really the only option. The GF1 rolled around back I think 2 or 3 years ago, and I bought one, I tried it, I actually shot I think an entire month, which I will post a link to in the written review, and I tried to make it work, but it really couldn't go above 800 ISO, and at 1.7 on the 20mm it just wasn't quite fast enough. So I wasn't happy with its image quality, but I got hooked with EVOL cameras. From there I got the NEX5 when it came out. It could go to higher ISOs, but the 2.8 lens was a flip-flop wash, so I really couldn't use it around the house, but it was a much better travel camera for me for some of the specifications that it can do. Namely, it's smaller and it can shoot faster, and it's got a fancy little panoramic mode, which is fun to play with. But its lenses are the real disappointment. So I've always loved Micro Four Thirds for its lenses. Sony had a little bit better image quality. Fuji came out with the X100, which I love the styling of. Some people don't, but personally I'm a big fan. It's got an f2 lens, but an APS-C sensor, so it can shoot 3200 is pretty much not a problem for it. 1600 is very, very good. So it was great, but it can't focus, and its menus were terrible. The new firmware that's out does improve that significantly, but shooting it next to the OMD is better. But I did own an X100 for a while. This is a friend's on loan for this review, for just image quality testing, and so you can see it. But yeah, the hook was set when I got my GF1 with an EVOL camera for me, and I've just tried the different variants. Now with the OMD, it can easily shoot at 3200. I even shoot it at 6400. Its image quality to me has surpassed the 70. It's got small, fast lenses, so it's really a great system for me. But yeah, so let's just go through really quick, show you the sizes. The one thing I don't like, I know the electric viewfinder is a huge selling point for a lot of you. Personally, I rarely use it. Only when it's the absolute brightest day outside and I can't see the viewfinder, the screen at all, I'll use the viewfinder. The killer for me, not only is it taller, it makes it quite a bit thicker in the back. And I take my cameras skiing with me, I take my cameras sailing with me. They go places. So they need to fit in either jacket pockets or waterproof cases or Pelican boxes. And that little bit on the back and this little hump on the top make it significantly harder to fit in those spaces than the NEX5 or even the X100. So that's a bit of a disappointment for me. I understand a lot of you really want that EVF, and I'm not against it. I just wish it was more tucked away like this and didn't stick out the back quite as much. I know you can take that back cup off, but the LCD or the reflective coating back there, it kind of makes me nervous that I'll scratch that up if I remove it. So for that reason, I kind of wish it wasn't there. The other thing that adds just a little bit of extra height to it is the hot shoe, which is great for accessories, and there's an accessory port under this. But the hot shoe sticks up just a little bit more. I almost wish the hot shoe was an accessory that you could take off just this portion so it was only a little smaller. And again, if you're just hand holding this camera, going to use it with a strap, not a problem at all. But it is just slightly bigger than these other cameras in terms of fitting in small spaces. And you can tell it's even a little bigger than the old school OM. And you can tell that their viewfinder never stuck out the back. Their mount comes a little further out because it's 35mm, but had they stuck with this styling, it's wider, but that fits in the spaces that the OMD doesn't, which I found a little interesting since the format is larger. But yeah, for me, this is about cameras that go places. So the OMD has been fantastic that way. Its image quality is fantastic. Let me just walk you through some of the oddities of it. The first is, when you turn it on, let's get it to focus a little bit here. You can see how fast it focuses. But here, let's see if you can hear the noise. Not sure if you're picking that up, so I won't do it for too long in case you can't. But when you're in a quiet room like I am right now with no one in it, you can hear an audible noise, which I've been told is from the IS. Doesn't bug me. It's not, from what I've heard, a flaw with the camera. It's just the IS working. But it has like a slight hiss to it, which is just, it's there. It's worth mentioning if you've seen it, but it doesn't really bother you. And if there's anyone in the room, you won't hear it. The menus are pretty good. I've used a Sony X5 and an X100, so I've become very tolerant of menus. You basically come down into the setting menu and you can go through all the different settings in here, which they're just stacked. And you can, as you go, it'll go from section to section if you just go down, which is nice. One of the nice features is you can hit the OK button and it brings up everything. You can see it's in ISO. So if I go left to right, it switches the ISO. If I go up to down, it switches the function I'm editing or changing, which is nice. But the other thing is you can see the different screens that it brings up as you cycle through. But if you hit OK and then hit Info, you can use this screen, which is actually touch sensitive. So you can press the one you want to change and then change it. A lot of people prefer that screen. I actually don't. For whatever reason, I really like the way when you hit it back to here, my brain works better with the options vertically and the subset options horizontally across the bottom. It just makes more sense to me. But either way you slice it, you have a very good way to set up all the options. It has the dual control dials. I flip-flop my front and rear, so when I'm in AV mode, this is A, and it just took a picture because it's in touchscreen shooting and my finger hit the back. But this adjusts my aperture. This is my EV. You can flip those and you can flip the directions they go. It's very customizable, which is fantastic. And same as when I go to S for shutter variable or time variable if you're a Canon guy. This will be the shutter. This will be EV. Both of these buttons are configurable, so I've set them up to be focus options. But yeah, and this is the cool part. So it's a touch screen. You can see this little icon on the left-hand side. Right now it says it won't do anything, the finger with a no on it. If you touch it again, now it's saying it's going to move the AF point, but not shoot. It'll only shoot what's on the, when you press the shutter. If I press it again, now you have full-on control. So if we press the wall, it takes a picture of the wall. If we press the lens, it takes a picture of the lens. This is the slowest focusing lens I have for it. So that should tell you something. And it just rapidly focuses and takes pictures, which is, it's just been fun for me. And you can tell I switched to shutter, it's at 4,000, so it's taking very fast pictures. But yeah, it's just set up very, very well. The grip, I have actually quite big hands. I'm a big guy. The thumb grip is fantastic. The one thing I don't like is, for me, with the size of my thumb, you can see when my thumb's in the thumb grip, it's very hard for me to hit the function 1 button. Play is easy when in the thumb grip, but function 1 isn't. I wish those were flip-flopped because I can hit that while gripping it to shoot. When I go to hit playback, I can press either one easily when I'm not trying to shoot. So I do wish those were switched. The grip in the front, it really needs to have more of an X5 grip. If you see how, if we go like that, see how much more contoured this is, when you hold an X5, it fits in your hand and you can't drop it. Like I can hold it with 2 fingers like that and it's not going anywhere. So I really like that design. I know the Olympus guys, just took another picture with the touchscreen. The Olympus guys have their wonderful grip. And it's a great looking grip, but it's $300. And I would only use the first portion that adds the piece here, not the second battery underneath, because I want to keep it small. I've had no problems holding it, to be honest, especially with this great rubber thumb piece on the back. But I miss how easy the Nex is to hold. When my friend loaned me his X100 again, I realized that this is quite difficult to hold. I know there's a lot of accessories that go on the hot shoe, the thumbs up, which are great and make it a lot easier, but this hump, the texture's smoother and it's a smaller hump than the OMD, so that makes it harder, and the back is pretty flat. So it's better than that for sure. It's just not quite as good as the Nex, which is the smallest camera here but the easiest to hold. So holding it's great. As you've seen, the focus is phenomenal. And then the other thing that's so great about Micro Four Thirds right now is, let me bring in the lenses. Here is, let's see here, the 45 and the 12 are easily confused. The easiest way to tell them apart is the diameter of their lens caps. The 45, great little lens, plastic construction for the most part. There's some metal in it, but it's mostly plastic. Versus, I only say that because this 12 is rock solid metal, like amazing construction. It's very impressive when you get it. And then I have the 14. The 12 is on loan from B&H for this review. It's not a lens I'm going to keep. It's fantastic. I love the fact that it snaps into focus, and this focus ring locks. You can't go any further here, that's close, and then when you get to infinity, you can't go any further there. I actually like that because if you're in a room where, for whatever reason, the camera can't focus or you need to force it, you can hit the ends and know where you are and manually focus faster. All the other Micro Four Thirds lenses are drive-by-wire or focus-by-wire. So you end up and it'll spin. Like this just goes around and around and around and around and around. And you can set the direction as to which way's infinity and which way's minimum focus distance, but it's still harder to do. So that's a very nice design. It's got a nice front element. It's just a great looking lens. It feels not cool as in awesome. It feels cool in your hands because it's metal. And it's just built a little better than the 45. But the 45 is no slouch, and you can tell they're meant to be the same size. So they make a great pair. The funny thing is, if we spin off the 20 and we put one of these guys on the camera, let's go with the 12. They only come in the silver color, so the silver on black, it's kind of an interesting combo. Personally, I prefer the black camera. I know a lot of people are after the silver combo. These look phenomenal on the silver camera, but not quite as good on black, if that matters to you. But yeah, personally, this lens for me isn't worth the price difference over the 14. This is a 2.5, that's a 2.0, but this is tiny. Look at how small this camera gets when we take the 14 and put it on there. So, and the other interesting thing, the lens caps, Panasonic's lens caps kind of crack me up. They're both the same diameter. They're both for Micro Four Thirds specific cameras. This is for the 14mm, it's about half as thick. This is for the older 20mm, it's about twice as thick. So when you pair the 14 with its thinner lens cap, the camera gets very thin. And let's move some of this stuff out of the way here so you can see the thicknesses of the 3 cameras. So it's, even with the EVF on the back, it's about the same thickness as the Nex, maybe a little thicker, but it's not bad. So you can definitely make the camera smaller with that. And the lens, this lens for the money is a fantastic lens. Nothing wrong with the 12. It's built better. It makes you smile when you hold it. It's a little faster at f2. It has the push-pull focus. Lots of very nice things with it. But the size and the price were just the turnoffs for me. Because of the camera's just not as compact with that lens on it. So that for me made my kit decision. I'm going with 3 lenses for my kit. I ordered the 20, 1.7, which is the lens I use 90% of the time. I have the 20 or the 14, which is a 28. It's a 2.5, which is basically my outdoor lens. If I want the camera small, I'm going skiing, going sailing, that's the lens that goes on it. I use that combo the same way I use this, which I've had this camera for almost 2 years now. And I've lived with a 16-2.8. I wish there were more lenses there. There weren't. The 14 is very similar here for the Olympus. It's not the fastest lens in the world, but it's wider and it's tiny. So I really like that lens. It also focuses faster than the 20. And then the 45 is just amazing. The image quality out of it and the separation you get in Micro Four Thirds is phenomenal. The nice thing is Micro Four Thirds obviously has less depth of field, but when you use a 45, which converts to 90, and it's a 1.8, you basically get the whole person's head in focus, which I've found to be beneficial. You're not dealing with, oh, their eyes in focus, but their nose and their ears aren't. It makes it a little easier for the cameras to focus quickly. It also makes it harder to completely blow a shot on focus. And the image quality is just phenomenal. So these are the two lenses I use the most, but when I'm out and about with the camera, sailing or skiing specifically, the 14 really pulls its weight there. And personally, I ordered the 14 with the GF3 kit because I just felt for an extra $95 it was worth it to get an extra camera that my son can use or my wife can use. So for me, it was $395 with the GF3 and the 14. So that was worth it. The 14 the Olympus 12 is still significantly more expensive than that, another $300. So for building a system for me, it's those three lenses. The 12 is out. I can see why a lot of people love the 12. It's just not in my budget, and the size is really the killer. And now let me show you really quick where the size really matters to me. So we'll move these back a bit. And here's the Olympus. Here's the Sony. This is a Pelican 1050 micro case. I'm going to tip it up on its side here. This goes to the beach with me. You can see there's some sand in it, and it goes skiing with me, and it goes pretty much everywhere I go. And you can fit another iPhone in there, and then the Sony just slides in. Boom, closed, waterproof box. About as big as a brick. And you can fit a camera, that's the fisheye adapter, and my phone. You can actually fit another phone, and then I usually put my car key in there because it's got a remote on it that I don't want to drown. So when I go sailing or I go to the beach, that has been my go-to kit for the last 2 years, and it's been phenomenal. So when I got the OMD and was looking at it, a big consideration was, will it fit in this Pelican box? So let's put the thin lens cap on the OMD. Sorry about that. And you go to put it in, and you can see it's much taller, won't close. So then you go to spin it around, lay it flat, and it just squeezes in this way. This is, I assume that's how I lost my hot shoe protector, but it won't close. Take the lens cap off, which I wouldn't really do, and it will close just. But then you look at it, there's no room for an iPhone, there's just enough room for a car key. And just for reference sake, the X100 drops right in. And there's even room for an iPhone with the X100 in there like that. So what I've done, set that box aside, is enter the next Pelican size up, the 1120. So real quick, you can see the size difference. It's not massive. It's a little harder to carry in your hand. It does have a nice handle. And it is a nicer, I like the matte finish on that better. And as you can tell, the pins are rusted on this. This gets used a lot by me. So it's the next case size up, and it comes only with pluck and peel foam, which I can't stand. So what I've done is I've left the bottom foam in, I've left the top foam in, I've taken out the pluck and peel that fills it, and then you can easily fit an OMD. Lid closes. It's against the foam, but it actually makes it nice and tight so it doesn't move. You can now fit iPhones that way. I could fit 4 or 5 of them in there. I can add another lens in there. I can easily add car keys. And just so you can see how I have it set up, I don't want to tip it out. But you could fit a few iPhones. You can fit another lens. If you tip your lenses up, you can maybe fit another one like that. A lot of room in here. Not that much bigger of a case. I think the case was $20. So it's, at the end of the day, it's not a huge deal breaker for me. It's just a little bit bigger, and you can see if you want it waterproof and bomb-proof, you got to work a little bit harder with the OMD. And I know some of you are probably skipping this portion of the review because who cares about a waterproof box, but personally, that was a huge requirement of mine. So yeah, that was crucial, and getting that's a Pelican 1120. It fits very well in the Pelican 1120. So a few other things with the camera. Let's wake it up. With the 20mm lens, I have had the glitch. I don't know if you want to call it a glitch or what, but sometimes it won't wake up with the 20 on it. You just have to cycle the power on and off, and then it'll wake up. Another thing I've noticed is you use the touchscreen a lot. So let's pop the lens cap off. If we switch to here, and we switch to, there's a button on the side that switches to EVF or the screen, and if you hold it down, cute little shortcut, you can have it brings up the switch to do auto. So say you want to focus up here. See how my finger just went near the screen and it switches, and it switches. That drove me insane. So I've switched auto switching off. And I switch it with the button when I need to use the viewfinder. It's worked perfectly for me. Admittedly, I don't use the viewfinder very often. You can also, the joystick moves the focus point on the back, and then you can focus like this. And right now it's in press to shoot mode. I can still use the shutter. And move the AF point. I can move the AF point like, oops, that's all of them. I can move it over there, focus. I can move it back over here, focus, or I can just touch. The disadvantage with touching in this mode is it shoots every time. Even if it can't find focus, eventually it will take a shot. So like, let's put my hand here. It just hunts and gives up and takes a shot. Obviously that was a very bad, I'm way inside the minimum focus distance, but that's one thing I've noticed is when it's an impossible shot, it'll hunt a bit and still take the shot once you've touched the screen. But you can turn off touchscreen shooting. So that's really, it's just an observation more than a complaint. The other thing I love is the tilting screen allows you to get into some angles you just can't get with other cameras. And especially with how small this camera is, you can get right down on the floor with it and angle this like that. So you're literally on the floor looking at whatever you're looking at. And I'll post some shots I've gotten that way. You get some great shots with a very interesting perspective that way. So that's one thing I really like. Another oddity I've found as I've shot with this is, actually I want to go into the regular menu. And if we go down to this and we shoot in 2:3, okay? So it matches the preview on the screen to whatever format you're shooting in, right? The sensor is a 4:3 ratio sensor. So we take a picture and then you hit replay. And then it's kind of hard to see here. Let me take another shot that's darker. So we'll just bring this way down. It's too dark, obviously. But so when we hit replay, see the white lines around there? That's showing you the full 4:3 image cropped to 2:3. I'm shooting raw, and it's only capturing the megapixels within the white box. But sometimes you'll miss your composition and have something you want there. You can never get it back. It's only in this replay and JPEGs in the camera. So it's kind of just frustrating to have that shown to me when I pick 2:3 and not be able to ever get it back. So what I've done is I shoot in 4:3, even though I hate that format. Hate's a strong word, but I just don't like 4:3 really at all. I'm a 3:2 guy really. I shoot in 4:3, and when I import into Lightroom, I then crop them with a preset. And then I'll just go and edit where they go if it's not quite right, because it brings it perfectly in just like it's showing you there. It takes the same amount off both sides. So I've been doing that. The other thing I'll say with the camera is these click wheels, they're great. The layout's great, etc. But there's a slight delay there. Sometimes it feels like I have it set up in half stop, so it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it goes back. But there's a weird delay to it. It wants you to be methodical and slow to feel right. It's just basically, I'm used to Canons clicky wheels back here. They're much more direct than this is, or there's less lag if you want to say it that way. Just worth mentioning. Nothing that drives you crazy, but it's just odd. The other thing that does drive me a little batty with this camera, I try to leave it on all the time, but like I said with my 20, it'll time out and you have to cycle the power switch. I don't know why they put the power switch on the back down here. Steve Huff said it in his review that Canons moved theirs up top, and at first I was like, well, that's weird. But when my friend loaned me his X100 to start doing the review, the X100 switch is up here by the shutter, and I've fallen in love with that again because it's so nice to just have the switch right there. It's really weird to you have to literally hold it in two hands, reach down here and hit the power switch. So it's just odd to be there. I know they put the dial around here so it couldn't be here, but it could have been someplace else. That's just a weird position. The other thing is it's a sealed camera. The lenses I have aren't, but it just makes you worry a little bit less taking it places, I suppose. It has its own separate SD slot on the side, and then the battery compartment is on the bottom. You can see the camera's still on with it open. And the weird thing with the battery one is it flops loose. It's not sprung. I'm used to sprung doors. It does click up and stay up, which is quite nice, but it's just a little weird that there's not a spring on it. You can see the battery in there. You close it, you lock it, it's in for good. The other thing about this camera is there are no spare batteries yet. So I have one battery, one charger, and really it's not, the battery lasts long enough. I've never run it out in a day. With the way I shoot, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it hasn't been a huge problem. But it does mean it's on the charger a lot at night when I get home. Their charger also has, it's not like a Canon with the flip down prongs. It comes with a separate cord that has to be plugged in, which is a style I hate because it just clutters up the counter when you're charging. The Apple prongs that they give with their power adapters fit into it and make it work. It's not pretty, but it works. I'll show pictures of that in the review. It's cost you $4 or whatever to pick one of those up off Amazon, and away you go. I highly suggest that. But yeah, overall, it's been a fantastic camera. I've had it about a month now. If you go through my personal family blog posts, the last 4 of them are all pretty much, I think they're all 100% shot with the OMD, except for a few days when I took the X100 and the X5 with me as well to do comparisons. There's maybe a few 5D3 shots in there as well. But a significant portion of the last 4 weeks of shots are all with this camera. I'll put plenty of samples in the review that on the page you're watching this on right now, so scroll through those, but also I'll link up some posts and show you. I'll also link up some posts from when I originally got my X100 and originally got my X5 and my GF1, so you can see what I was shooting at those times, and you can kind of see the image quality improve over the times I've gotten these cameras, because I typically shoot with them for a month straight, whether they're great or not, and then they either drive me insane or I still love them and I keep shooting them. The X100 was just focusing in menu issues. The X5 had no fast lenses. The GF1 just didn't have the ISOs I needed. But the OMD so far has been very impressive. The only issue I've seen with it is when you first look at its files in Lightroom, and granted I have a 5D3, so I am spoiled with high ISOs, but there's some luminance noise in its high ISO work. Not chroma, just luminance, but it kind of zaps the contrast a little bit when you get above 800 ISO. So I made a preset for the camera that just bumps up that contrast again and really fixes that problem. So I've still been shooting well above 800. 3200 is no problem. I even use 6400 to good effect. So it's not a problem. It's just initially when I looked at it, it was a little lackluster. I don't know if you noticed, but I also run it with +5 exposure compensation almost all the time. That's something I've done on a lot of my cameras from time to time because I like kind of the brighter look, but with the OMD I'm at +5 where on a regular camera I'd be at 0, and I'll even go to +1 on the OMD because that lack of contrast is worse if you have to boost the exposure in Lightroom. So I've just been doing that to really it's just something I've noticed that it really helps the image quality. You can set your EVF up your exposure comp in camera to a default value, so I could not even have to do that if I wanted to. So it's not a problem, it's just an observation. And again, it's been a fantastic camera with me. I'm loving the 20. The 45 is great for people who like longer lenses. It's not a focal length I use that often. I'm a 24 and 50 guy on full frame. So I have the 14 and the 40, or the 14 and the 20, which are 28 and 40. and they're working great for me. So that's the way I use the camera. There will be plenty of samples in the written review, so please go through those. Sorry, the video cut out there. So there'll be plenty of samples in the review. I'll have images of the sizes of these cameras for some comparison, but you can see them here on the table. But yeah, the OMD has really, at least for now, become my perfect small camera, my perfect evil camera. Like I said, the size isn't ideal for me, but it shoots 9 frames per second if I want to do that. The IS on it is phenomenal. Typically that doesn't help with people shooting, but when I'm not shooting people, it's been great for that. I've actually taken it on a few landscape sessions where it's comparing it to the 5D3 was a little scary at how close they were, considering the price difference and the sensor difference. But yeah, it's just been a great camera so far for me. I've been having a lot of fun with it. The tip-up LCD has allowed me to get some shots I couldn't get otherwise. That's something I learned with the NEX5, how nice that feature is. So it's something I've really grown to like in a camera. I don't think I'd want it in my DSLR. I'd prefer those bodies to be a little bit better sealed. But for the little cameras, it's fantastic. And I really enjoy shooting with live view with the family. So yeah, this camera has really been a great camera for me. This is Ben Jacobson with Ben Jacobson Photo with the Olympus OMD review. Thank you.